Hi everybody and welcome back. My name's Laura Scott. I'm partner and Sydney office lead here at ADAPTOVATE. And today I'm honoured to be hosting a conversation on NAIDOC Week. NAIDOC Week celebrates and recognises the history, culture and achievements of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. It's a powerful moment for us to pause and listen. And that's exactly what we're doing here today. So welcome, Dustin. It's great to have you here. To begin, would you mind opening with an acknowledgement of country, please?
Sure thing, Laura. Thanks for having me today. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the original custodians of the land on which we're meeting today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay our respects to elders past and present and extend those respects to anyone watching here today as well.
Thank you. Dustin, I sit in a lot of boardrooms with a lot of corporates, and we always do a acknowledgement of country. And I'd like you to talk to us about some of the tips that you think can make an acknowledgement really meaningful.
Yeah, sure. So I think some of the important things to remember here, as a Aboriginal person, I can do an acknowledgement of country. I can't do a welcome to country. A welcome to country is much more done by an elder of the actual land, this is not my current land. We're from Ngunnawal, which is around Canberra way for the standard sort of capital city areas. So someone from the actual lands here would have to do a welcome to country. And in an acknowledgement of country, I think it's important to think about the words that you're saying. You often hear people say, I'd like to acknowledge the original owners of this land. There's no owners, and that's why I generally put that word custodians in there. It's very important. It's much more about everyone being at one with the land, and the land is part of us and we're part of the land. So it's a much more inclusive way to think about it, and that's how I like to address it. The other point is trying to look at something from around the land that you're either from or that you're speaking on. Something that's interesting is, people say, as I just did as well, like, to the Gadigal land on Eora Nation. Eora is a made-up word from Aboriginal settlements back in the colonisation time. It was just a word that came about because of when they were talking to Bennelong back then, and he actually used the word Eora, and the understanding was that it meant black man. So little tidbits like that is actually quite useful, and I find I get the most out of those acknowledgements and welcomes when there's some interesting fact in there that I can connect to, and it brings you closer to the country that you're on.
I completely agree. Thank you. That's great points. So the NAIDOC theme for this year is strength, vision and legacy. Can we start with strength and what that means to you?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you some quite high-level ways of how I'm seeing this, and I think it really aligns with GADALI and what we're looking to do. So strength for me is going forward as one nation, one mob, everyone together, strength in numbers that everyone's heard of, and the more people we have that subscribe to this theory, the better off we'll all be in the coming years. Vision is what can we do to make tomorrow better than today. And that's a really big part of what we're doing as well. And the legacy also leans into, from GADALI's mission as well, learn from the past. We don't need to dwell on it, because you can waste then future time on that. I think there's enough things going on that we need to really focus on that vision and really bring everyone together for a better tomorrow.
And the last one, legacy.
So yeah, the legacy is that past side of what we're actually looking at. So, and just trying to learn from that, and everything that's happened, either what you did today, it doesn't have to be, legacy from 50,000 years ago. Just think about how you can change tomorrow. What could you do a little bit better today or tomorrow from what you've learnt today or yesterday?
Brilliant. And which brings me to GADALI. So we've sat down in the past and we had probably more of a formal interview, which our listeners can certainly and hopefully will go back and listen to. GADALI, can you please talk to us? What's GADALI doing from where we were 6 months ago? Where are you now?
Sure. So brief introduction for new viewers is GADALI. It actually comes from a Ngunnawal word, which means to hunt. And it came out of the premise, the old proverb of give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. So we're trying to teach people to hunt for their own future, for their own careers. And so that's where I very quickly found myself in a lucky situation where I went to a public school out in country New South Wales, was lucky enough to get into an opportunity and go to university. At that university, studied electrical engineering, and then found myself able to, again, I think you do make your own luck to a degree, but I was in the right place at the right time, and been sort of like continually finding myself in these what I call lucky situations to get to where I am today, where I can start to give back. Mm-hmm. So I'm grateful for what happened in my lifetime, but I think there were a lot of barriers there that even a slight slip up, being in the wrong place, I wouldn't have been able to get here today. Right. So we're planning to try and lower those barriers and increase those opportunities and provide more pathways for people on full careers to actually move from a First Nations perspective into a tech career. So as we do this becomes more of an opportunity that we can see and capitalise on moving forward for First Nations people.
So Dustin, recently you've started the Industry Studio. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. So Industry Studio is a way that we're trying to disrupt a bit of the traditional consultancy work. So as opposed to going in and doing, a long, could be up to 2-year engagement of actually finding out what's going on within a company, providing a plan and a framework that they then work on for the next 5-10 years. With AI, the change that needs to happen much more faster than it has done in the past. Okay. So what we're doing is we're implementing these ideation sessions, which are bringing in some stakeholders, everything from like front of house people all the way through to executives, mm-hmm. and just going, okay, let's get 10 or 15 of those in, work out what some of your major problems are from a business lens. Okay. And then we're utilizing AI to put a proof of concept in within a 4 to 8 week period, make sure that this is aligned with the business problem that we want to solve. And then once we're doing that, we're moving on to the actual implementation of that. This allows for a really quick turnaround and getting value from the engagement very quickly, which particularly for a not-for-profit, which has not they may have money, they don't have time, they don't have resources, and they're not sure how to spend the money the best way that they can. So we want to make sure that we can give them the best value for money. And so we see this and iterating that process multiple times as everything's changing, rather than trying to come up with one big solution that's just going to be too costly for the actual
and not having to wait for 2 years to actually see an output.
Exactly, yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, certainly we've seen them in the office, and the buzz that they're creating around the office just from the 2 that you've had so far have been fantastic. The conversations that we've had around the output and the pace at which you've been able to move, and just to prototype in 2.5 weeks is fantastic. So well done.
Yeah, thank you. It's been and we're building up more of the blueprint, and we want this to be repeatable and scalable. So it's not about reinventing new solutions, which is why we can do that prototyping so fast. It's more about actually utilizing existing solutions that are out there and accelerating the adoption of those solutions that exist.
So is there any plan for bringing in First Nations people into Industry Studio at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where everything that we're doing, all of the vehicles we're currently pushing from within inside the business, it has to be aligned with our mission of bringing more First Nations people into IT. Now, it may not be a direct employment approach for each one of these vehicles that we're using, but there has to be some final goal as to how that's going to help us in the long run. Okay. If it doesn't do that, it's not something that we entertain.
Great. Okay. Now I've got a bit of a curly question. Offshoring. In the last conversation that we had, you spoke about onshoring. The amount of rooms that I've sat in recently in many different industries that are talking about offshoring to Manila based on either cost saving or capability. You spoke to me about onshoring and using First Nations people. Can we talk about that and what your plans are for that, and what messaging we can be saying to corporates from a Australian perspective?
Absolutely. I think even since we last spoke, it has changed a little bit. If anyone saw the original, it was part of our plan for within about a 5 to 7 year period. As you've mentioned, we're actually getting a lot of support, and people want to see that timeline brought in a bit more. As I mentioned before, the proliferation of broadband and internet access to the bulk of Australia now. There's some statistics just out in March are showing that there's almost 90% of First Nations people have been engaged with the internet in the last 3 months. So that proliferation is actually showing itself as to where that's actually going. And part of having that broadband access and allowing that people to work outside of the cities and more within their community. That's where we need to be. There's been a lot of training exercises that a lot of people have commissioned over the years, and there's a lot of well-trained people up there, but it's not followed through because they can't get the jobs there. Okay. So we're looking and hopefully trying to get some support from government and corporates that are out there to actually help us as far as getting premises that are in these regions. I know there's a lot of government buildings that are sitting there and being underutilised at this point in time. So can you get as cheaply as you can? Cheap is a subjective word. Do you get your value for money necessarily going to Philippines or doing some sort of offshoring? I think you can get as good, if not better value, if you're actually utilising an onshoring approach here. And that's what we're really hoping to do. So to actually provide more value, even though in the short term, the actual cheapness may not seem exactly the same.
Yeah. And from a long-term perspective, sustainability with our own, using our own people would be ideal.
Absolutely. So going down, I mean, if you look at, again, some of the statistics, it was that the Australian Trade and Investment Commission came out with that the tech culture, it's growing at 16% year on year at the moment. So we don't have that amount of people here in Australia to actually service that. And getting back to, which I think we brought up last time again, Tech Council of Australia, they're hoping to have 1.2 million tech workers by 2030, which will also, that means that we've got to have about another 600,000 tech workers by then. So we need to get those people trained up and ready to go. And I'd prefer those people to be here and supporting ourselves and our country and everyone around us. Again, hopefully you're seeing there's a bit of a theme here. It's all about being better tomorrow and how can we make this better. I've got some kids, I want those kids to have a better future, and these are all ways that we can do that on our own little scale.
Yeah, agree. Is there any particular industry within the tech sector that is showing most interest at the moment?
I think finance is going down that path where they're very much looking down the onshoring path. It has quite a good story to it, particularly for them internally, and also to show to the Australian public that they are supporting Australian jobs, which is where I think we need to be in this day.
Dustin, so why GADALI?
Because my background is originally in the tech sector, I was having a bit of a look around and I realised that most First Nations people, a vocation of choice is generally down legal services, social services. The top 12 jobs, according to the last census via the ABS, there's no tech people in First Nations doing that. They're generally down labouring, office, as I said, social services, legal services. So I saw a bit of an opportunity there, and then we started looking again at some of the more of the significant statistics that are out there. And if you look at pay scales and how they actually work within Australia, everything up to around about $1,000, the First Nations per capita tracks very similarly to the general population. But once you go over $1,000, the general population starts to kick up substantially, $1,000 per week. So First Nations, on the other hand, actually declines. It drops off significantly, which sort of aligns with those jobs because, like I said, there was a lot of labouring jobs in that top sort of 12 vocations. So we started thinking about ways that we can actually help here and what we can do. And considering I come from that tech background, thought, well, let's actually start to see how we can implement that. So when we started GADALI, we've decided that we need to create some better pathways and opportunities for these people. I myself found myself very lucky that I was able to come from a small country town, went to high school there, got lucky enough to get into university, did my university degree there, and then I feel like I found myself in the right place at the right time. I know we always say that you make your luck, but you still have to be in those right places. And so as much as I feel really lucky about that, I feel like there's more people out there that could do exactly what I've done if those barriers were lower and the opportunities and pathways existed for them. So I'm just making sure that we can provide those opportunities and pathways. There's been a lot of training sessions that corporates have done for First Nations people. A lot of communities are quite well versed in some of the technical skills that are out there, but the opportunity for job on country in community has not been there. With this proliferation of broadband into these communities and rural areas, we're very confident that we can actually make this work and provide these jobs in these areas.
What are some of the closing the gap initiatives that you're working towards?
So yeah, well, we can go towards the easier ones, which is sort of the targets 5 to 8, which is about employment and education. And, you know, that's, to me, that's the low-hanging fruit that we can grab and we can work with really well. I'm really hopeful that we can start to affect some of these other ones that the states are struggling with at the moment, which is incarceration rates and the mortality rates. Now, I'm not saying that we can fix these, but as I've mentioned and alluded to, we just want to make small changes that we can. So we're finding, after talking to some people out in some of the rural parts of Australia, they're saying even something simple like a speeding fine, someone can get that, not understand the bureaucratic process to go through to even pay that. So they won't pay it, they'll get a reminder, then they'll get a subpoena, they'll go to court. They'll be told to go to court, but they won't go to court because they don't know what they need to do or where they need to go. And then they'll get a warrant out for the arrest. So they'll end up as another number, a statistic on that incarceration rate. So that's a very simple thing that can be nipped in the bud at the start. If you can provide a process that actually makes it easier for them to navigate that bureaucracy. We are working with a significant partner at the moment, which we're in really early stages, but we're trying to come up with some AI and application based from a mobile perspective to actually allow these people to navigate these bureaucratic processes that are, they are westernized based, and they're hard enough for people that are actually in government. I've heard of some departments changing names 5 times in a year and they don't even know which department they're working for. So for someone who's not au fait with it, it's almost impossible for them to work out what they should be doing. So if you think about that, getting down to explaining in simple terms how to go about paying a speeding fine. If I have a certain type of illness, if this comes up, they can actually go through and find the right path, or at least get them in front of the right people. That way we start to drop these, these simple incarceration rates and mortality rates. There are people, and there are unfortunately some deaths that occur just through it's not even through negligence, it's just not knowing. So being able to provide that information and education is key to this whole process of these closing the gap initiatives.
Absolutely, brilliant. And I take my hat off to you, it's brilliant. Can we talk about partnerships? So ADAPTOVATE and GADALI, we sit next to each other and we absolutely value your partnership. Can you talk to us about some of the work that we're doing together?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's even more than just the ADAPTOVATE and GADALI partnership. It's everyone that's here. I've been very fortunate in everyone that we've pitched this idea to. And I thought, when I came in, I thought I'm going to go to my old corporate partners that I know and they're not going to be interested. Everyone is on board, which is really heartening and makes you think everyone does want to make this change. They're just not sure how. So we want to try and bridge that gap. And the partnership we've got with ADAPTOVATE has been enabled, particularly GADALI, to come out as a startup and accelerate our growth and our position in the market really quickly. You've got fantastic resources there from the people and process consultancy work that you do. And we really value that because we're very much coming from that tech side. So having those partnerships and everyone else that we've got going on is key to the success and actually furthering our mission of getting more First Nations people into IT.
Dustin, thanks very much for coming along again to talk to me. It's a real privilege to always speak to you, and I really look forward to working together in the future.
No, thank you, Laura. I really appreciate it and look forward to doing another one of these very soon.
Fantastic. Thanks for coming, everybody. It was great to have you here again. And just a reminder, you can listen to us wherever you listen to your podcasts or reach out to us at adaptovate.com.